Hi everyone, I'm Micah,
And I'm Kat.
and this is our podcast where we talk about relational, mental, spiritual, and physical wholeness.
Join us today as we talk about staying connected to your spouse when life gets crazy. So we have been through a lot of life together. We've been married 4.5 years. We have 2 kids, 3.5 and 2. And we have a fluffy dog. But we have just been through so many things in such a short amount of time. And we wanted to just share a little bit about us and where we're coming from, some of our history before we dive into our topic today.
So, a little bit about our story. I was working at the General Motors plant in Arlington, Texas, where we make the GMC, Chevy, and Cadillac SUVs. I'd been doing that for about 7 years, and I had to stop because of some blood pressure problems. Not high blood pressure, weirdly, but if for some reason when I stand for a while or I exert myself a lot, my blood pressure drops. And so that's pretty much the whole job there. So I had to stop that. I got into teaching at a middle school. And that was just a very horrible situation. Not because of the kids, strangely, but it was just the leadership there and the amount of pressure and work they put on you. I was very, 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 very stressed. Maybe part of that is me and my temperament. But also I had no time with Kat and the girls, and it just did not, I knew this is not the right thing for us. And so I stopped doing that. And after that happened, we wanted to move to North Carolina, Western North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains there for a while, because she has a grandmother that lives there, and we'd visited and we'd seen it. And every time we did, it's so different from Texas, the dry, hot, flat, nothing. It's just trees, mountains, hills, rivers.
So green.
And so I was like, you know what, I need a job. Why don't I just apply there? And so I applied there, and within a week, I think, I got the job. And so we moved there, but alas, my problems with my blood pressure popped up again. And I wasn't able to do that job because I was just on my feet all the time. It really started agitating everything. In fact, I drove home from work one day and I was just so lightheaded, I couldn't walk to the door of our house. I just opened the door, rolled out onto the ground, and started trying to crawl to the door.
The worst thing I've ever seen.
Fortunately, Kat came out, I guess she heard me pull up or something.
I think I was outside with the girls, they were playing outside, and we saw you pull up, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that was really scary.
Yeah, well, I know you were inside when I got there, so I guess you must have heard me. And then she came out, and so she helped me inside, and then I was on the bed for, I think, 2 days.
Yeah, it was days.
So I was like, okay, we need to think about something else. And then my mother, who had cancer 3 years prior, that came back, and it was progressing and looking like, we didn't know how much longer she had to live. And so all of that led us to come back to Texas.
Yeah.
And you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we moved back to Texas, which I will forever stand by as a good thing. We were motivated by good things, but it was so difficult. We were living with your parents in their house. Your brother, who was visiting from Australia, got trapped in America because of COVID. So it's
very full house.
Very full house with our 2 small children, and it was just, living with your in-laws is one thing, but then it was just, everything was heightened because your mom was sick. And so it was just a very, very intense time, especially as she started to decline and just all of that. There was just so many things that we went through. Ended up moving out of your dad's house, thankfully getting our own place, but just so many things happened really quickly for us. So now you are working. Micah has always wanted to get into counseling, and so he is on a fast track getting his marriage and family therapy degree, and I'm working full time as a nanny, which is crazy because we never thought we would be in this position. I never thought that I would be, like a full time worker, and stuff. I thought I would just be stay at home and everything, but it really is. It's really the best thing for our family right now. It's like, this is something you've always wanted to do, and it's finally like, okay, the timing's right. Like, let's just do it. Let's make it happen. And it feels like there's just a lot of grace on this season for us, even though it's totally like just different from what we thought. Like,
yeah, I mean, it is for me too. I was kind of have that traditional mindset. The guy takes care of the family, man's a provider, and this has been odd for me having to rely on my wife. For me, it's just been weird, but it helps that I'm in school. I feel like I am being productive, but it is quite different, and I'm sure it's probably was for you because you didn't really grow up like that either.
Yeah, no, my mom stayed at home like forever. I mean, she only got a job like a couple years ago, really, so like everything was in the home, and so. But I mean, I'm such an achiever. Like, I always wanted to work, like even when Micah was working stuff, I'm like, oh, I feel like I should do something or whatever. So for me, in a way, it's kind of a release. Like, I finally get to work. I get to contribute, like to the family and stuff. So it's a really different season. But I think in that, like we're still learning a lot about how to stay connected to each other, how to navigate this new season and just everything that's going on.
Yeah. It sounds like you might have some control issues you need to work through.
I don't like to think of it as control.
We'll talk about it in another podcast.
Yeah.
No, she's not controlling.
I'm just a super helper.
She is, yeah. And we all have our, things we feel anxious about too. And I think that's kind of one of hers, wanting to, so she's learning to trust in God about just relaxing when it comes to finances and us being taken care of. And
yeah, especially right now where I'm like one nanny job is ending and I'm having to apply for another one and all that, it's just it's a whole journey. Everything's a journey, right?
Yeah, but that's another podcast. So
it is.
This one we're talking about connection. So
so
I'm going to start out how we stay connected when we're picking at each other's weak points. So first thing about connection, I guess we're talking about this too because, we've been able to, not a perfect job, but we've been able to stay pretty well connected through all of that. I think that's something that would have torn a lot of other couples apart.
Yeah.
That's like divorce material to go through all that, and like you having to take care of my mom while I was working, and things. That was just really rough, and I'm grateful for you that you stayed through all of it, and I'm very blessed, to have someone like you that was able to go through that. But anyway, so about us staying connected, the first thing I want to touch on is. What I've learned is it's important to be proactive in staying connected, and you have to realize you can't coast. You can't go on autopilot and just expect that you're going to stay connected and your relationship is going to be great and everything's going to just kind of naturally happen. You have to do work. It's a lot like managing a garden. You have to take care of it. You have to water it. You have to do things that is going to help feed the flowers and help them grow. You can't just think it's going to take care of itself. It's going to happen. And I think a lot of people make a mistake in thinking that. And, then they get disconnected and they think something's wrong with the marriage. And it was nothing wrong with the marriage. It's that you just didn't do any work. You're not doing your job. You can't coast and expect things to just take care of themselves. And I don't mean that negatively about anyone who's in a horrible marriage with a horrible partner. I'm just talking about the average normal people that are imperfect. we need to be proactive if you want to stay connected. And that's really important because you can know everything you're supposed to do to be connected. You can know all the 5 love languages. You can know your partner's love language and know, this is what helps us be connected, know what to do. But unless you are proactive about doing those things, it's just not going to happen. So what helps me be proactive is setting goals. This is just how my brain works. Some of you might think this is weird, but I write down and have daily goals, and every day I'll even write it out every single day, and every day fresh write it out again to do these certain things every day for my wife, for us to be connected. And then the other thing, and then I'll let Kat talk a bit because you're probably tired of hearing me, is I try to do these things as early in the day as possible. And when she has to get up early and leave for work, it can't really happen then.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I do that as soon as she gets home. So I don't always do that, but I have noticed like it's a lot better when we do it as soon as you get home.
Yeah.
And that's something we've recently talked about and said, you know what, hey, we need to be doing it this way. We can't wait until the kids go to bed and we've watched TV and we've zoned out. We got to do this right when you get home. And then on her days off, we need to do it first thing in the morning after, I have my quiet time first and other few things that you need to do or whatever, but as early in the day as possible that you can, because it really sets the pace for the rest of the day, much like spending time with God, having quiet time kind of really sets the pace for the rest of the day. Us connecting really sets the pace for us being connected throughout the whole entire day. And if we don't do that, I just notice we feel disconnected for the whole time, and then we're trying to talk and connect at the very end when we're, our eyes are rolling back in our heads and we're wanting to go to bed. And so it's just so much more productive. Do it as early as possible, and it's going to keep you connected for the rest of your day. So now, anything you want to say?
I just think that being proactive is just being intentional. Like it's easy at the beginning of a relationship because you're so excited, like you want to know everything about this amazing person that you've just discovered, and so it's easy to ask them questions and to be super interested in what they have to say. But as like you go through life, and life is full of a lot of, I don't know, monotony, for lack of a better word. Like, every day is different and new and everything, but then like there's diapers to change, and there's dogs to take out, and there's meals to, eat, and all this stuff, like all the things that just make up life. And
we have to change the kids' diapers.
Yes, you do.
I do help out.
He does a good job. But I think, just like still making that like point to say like, how is your your inner world, what are you thinking about, like what is going on in your mind, and stuff, like what did you and God talk about in quiet time or whatever, like being genuinely interested in the person that you're married to, the person that you're in a relationship with, it really means a lot, but then it also, I feel like, will take you very far. So I think it's just really valuable.
Yeah, that's good, babe. And do you want to start sharing things we do? If I'm honest with you, this is our 5th time recording this because we kept messing it up. This is it's our first time making a podcast, and we're trying to figure out what notes we need to write down exactly with, so we can stay on track without messing up and whatever. So this is our 5th take, and so a lot of this we've gone over. Anyway, so it's funny she's going to be saying all this again, but anyway.
So some of the ways that I stay intentional about being connected is, for me, it's better if we stay connected, like we're in communication like throughout the day. So usually I'll start that because he's at home with the girls. And so like around 10 o'clock, I have an alarm on my phone actually at 10. It says text Micah. And I never used alarms on my phone until I met this guy, because I just use them to wake up and that's it. But he has an alarm for everything. And it really, I don't know, I just never did that before, but it really does help. So like if I'm at work, I'm doing stuff with the kids there, whatever, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to text him. And so for me, it's like, checking in, saying, hey, how's your morning going? How's life? Just kind of checking in. And then, like maybe we'll text again in the afternoon. So even just like being intentional about reaching out, and like making that first, I don't know, bid for connection, just starting the day off, like caring about one another. And then especially, yeah, when I get home, we've recently realized like it's so important for us to reconnect right when I get home.
Yeah.
Because if, like it's been where he's working on school, or, something's happening with the kids, and, if we don't have that time, like the rest of the evening usually is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Like, because we are very disconnected. We're not in sync. We don't have a game plan for dinner. We don't have a game plan for what we're going to do with the kids.
Get irritated with each other more easily.
Yeah. We get more like just grumpy, and it's a wreck. It's no fun. And then we're just like, and so you're just in a bad mood. And so even by us realizing that, like,
I'm not the only one.
Yeah, no. Just like realizing like, hey, it's so important for us to be intentional about taking that time, even if it's like 5-10 minutes, just like to reconnect. Hey, how are you? What do we want to do? Like, what's our game plan? And stuff like that makes the biggest difference.
That's true. Yeah, that's reminded me of something too that I said in one of the other podcasts we recorded and then had to delete and do again, is setting goals too. For me, if I set them too high, I do them for a short time and then I get lazy and I don't follow through. And so what has helped me stick with it more, is making the goals small and making them achievable and sustainable, so I can do them long term. If I just set them too high, then eventually it's like, oh, this is too much, and I start forgetting and not following through because it's just too much. But just making the goals small so I can do them long term, and then as I get used to those, then I've gradually increased the amount of time I do it for. And also too, something that helps when I don't feel like doing something, a connecting activity, just deciding to do it just for like 3 minutes or 5 minutes instead of doing it for 10 or 15. It may not seem like a lot, but hey, we're connecting.
Yeah.
Like, rather than me saying, you know what, I don't feel like talking, we're just going to watch TV. If I just, and then it doesn't happen, but instead of doing that, if I just say, you know what, I don't feel like it, but we're going to talk for 5 minutes. I'm going to shut the TV off, put my phone down, put it on lock and put it away, and just talk for 5 minutes. Hey, we talked for 5 minutes and we connected for 5 minutes, and it's better than nothing. But usually what happens is, if we just talk for 5 minutes, it ends up being 10, 15, 20 minutes. It happened just 2 days ago, I think, when I did that. I was like, I'm just going to talk 5 minutes, and it ended up being 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It ends up being longer because the hardest part of doing anything really, is just starting. And so if you can trick yourself into starting just by saying, hey, I'm only going to talk with my wife and listen to her for 3 minutes. And once you start, you're like, you know what, I can do this. I can make my wife feel good by listening to her for 3 or 5 minutes. Then it's a lot easier to continue. I might have messed that up, what I said there, but anyway. So let's go on to specific things you do. You touched on that already, right? Okay. Yeah, so for me, small specific things, something I learned was, I learned from a man named John Gottman, who's over the Gottman Research Institute. They are psychologists, they're not counselors, but what they do is research couples, learn what helps couples be connected just by observing couples, observing what they do, and seeing the couples that are healthy and have great relationships. What do they do and how often do they do it and things like that. But one of the things he said was a very powerful thing to connect a couple was the 20-second hug and a 6-second kiss. And so it seems kind of weird, but it works.
It does work.
It does. Like, it's very, very powerful in just making you feel connected to your spouse. I mean, yeah, there's even times like, you've gotten home, I'm still working on school, you start doing dinner, blah, blah, blah. We start, kind of like brushing up against each other the wrong way. And I've just like put everything down, gone up to you and just given you a hug for 20 seconds or longer and just a kiss, and like everything kind of like the calm comes over the storm. Like, it really does. And so doing that like first thing every day as early as possible again is a great way to start the connection process. And then trying to find a space away from the kids to talk. Sometimes that's not easy, but if you can do that, we like sitting outside in our lawn chairs, and I've before tried to make a cup of coffee when you get home, or some iced coffee or something, so we can sit and talk that way. And it's a lot better when it's away from the kids, or if they're outside playing and not all over us. It really helps. I love my kids, don't take it that I hate them, but
no,
they can be connection
barrier.
Yes, sometimes.
Well, kids just know, they have this sixth sense of like, hey, I'm trying to get something done, and they immediately, it's like a magnetic pull, and they like come and like just want to be right next to you as you're trying to accomplish this thing. So, hug your kid and gently shove them away. Like, go play this, because your connection with your spouse is the most important thing, and it's going to make your kids' lives better because you guys are connected and you're happy. Like, everyone remembers what it was like when their parents were fighting, like the instability and like even the fear that you felt. Like, I mean, I know I do. I remember that, like, as a kid, like being so scared, like, oh no, it's gonna happen, and like, and my parents, they might not have even been fighting about something that big, but it's that instability that just can cause fear in a child. And so anyways, like, you guys taking the time to connect to each other, to make that a priority, is really the best thing you can do for your family.
Yeah. And another thing that helps is, if you haven't read Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages, it's a very popular book. I'm sure you have. Like, even so many non-Christians I know of have read that book or heard of it. But it's the 5 love languages are these ways that we receive and give love primarily, and each person has a certain thing that makes them feel loved, and they tend to show love that way, and to them that speaks love. And the 5 of them are words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, which is like doing things together, talking with each other, paying attention to each other rather than being distracted. I think I already said gifts, right? Did I?
No.
Gifts and acts of service. So words of affirmation, touch, quality time, gifts, acts of service. They're the 5. And so learning each other's which way that each other, what your love language is, I guess you could say, how your spouse, what makes your spouse feel loved.
Yeah.
Learning that. However, I think some couples that know that can maybe go a bit too extreme in that. And the fact that I think all of us, like, we give and receive love in all of them in a lot of different ways. And so focusing on one too much and not neglecting the other parts can not be as helpful. And so I think it's good to kind of like focus a bit more on that one area that makes them feel really loved, but also do the other stuff as well. But also something I found out is just because something isn't your spouse's love language, if it's your love language, go ahead and do that thing for them. It not only helps them feel loved, but to you, when you do that thing, say like your love language is affection, mine is quality, is touch, Kat's is quality time, and by me being affectionate towards her, it actually, she enjoys it, but it also helps me because when there's something I learned, it's a psychological thing. You know how our emotions influence our actions? Well, actions also influence emotions a lot. And so by acting loving towards your spouse, it actually tells your brain, this person is valuable. This person is worthy of love. This person is worthy of respect. And so you're growing and building those emotions of love inside you by acting loving, doing those loving actions. And so don't neglect if something is your love language just because it's not your spouse's love language. If it's your love language, still do that thing for your spouse, because that is going to help you and create and foster that connection and love inside you for your spouse as well, as on top of doing whatever their love language is as well, if that makes sense. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think when I realize like you're acting in that way and stuff, like if you come up and hug me or, like, or kiss or whatever it is, and stuff, like I know that that's you expressing love. And so like I've learned to like take that and, like I feel loved by that, instead of just like, oh, he's just doing this or whatever, it's like, it's like, no, like this is a loving action, and so I'm able to receive it that way. And so, yeah, I think it's really powerful. And yeah, you can't just, everybody needs words of affirmation. Everyone needs hugs. Everyone needs, gifts are always welcome. Like all of these things, like really do communicate love. And yeah, nobody has to be boxed in, but there definitely, I think are certain ones that are more meaningful than others. So
yeah, that's good. So do we want to talk about how we reconnect when we feel disconnected for a bit?
Yes. So for me, if we're disconnected, usually one of two things has happened. Either, first of all, I've been snippy or snappy or whatever word you want to use for it, and lashed out in some way and need to apologize, or I've been hurt and I don't know how to deal with it. And so if we're disconnected because I did something, if I responded poorly to something that Micah had done or something the kids did or whatever it was that caused this connection, usually the best way to get back to connection is to apologize. And that is not always easy. Like sometimes you really feel like your reaction was justified, but something I've kind of been, I don't know, just a side note, been working through is like, okay, you can feel an emotion and that's fine, but how you act on it is not always okay. And like I'm actively learning to just respond better, and like, okay, I'm feeling really angry, I'm feeling frustrated by this, like, all right, let me take a moment before I blow up at whoever is close by. Usually it's Micah. And so, but yeah, like apologizing, like, hey, like, I'm really sorry that wasn't okay. Or if Micah's done something and I'm feeling hurt by it, like I'm such an anti-confrontation person, like usually I'm like off, like I just kind of like vent my energy or whatever I'm feeling, like through cleaning or through like starting some project or doing something, and really like kind of coming back and like calming myself down again and saying like, okay, what am I feeling? And coming to Micah and saying, hey, like I'm feeling like this, like when this happened, it made me feel this way, and sharing those emotions. Like I think the biggest thing with both of those is being vulnerable, because if you're not vulnerable, like you're not going to get anywhere. Like if I'm being prideful and like I didn't do anything wrong, like you're going to have to deal with it. Like we're not going to get reconnected and we're going to stay in this like awkward, like, or angry, uncomfortable stalemate, and so if there's disconnection, like, yeah, I feel like those are the two things I feel like for anybody, it's like either you've done something or someone did something to you and now you have to figure out how to deal with it. And so going through those, either apologizing or sharing how you're feeling, like those are the best ways to reconnect, I think.
Yeah. I think it can also happen, just like what we said at the beginning about being proactive, just when we're not paying attention to each other, and we're just getting caught up in things we have to do, taking care of the kids, getting dinner ready, this and this. And often it's the kids, they can be very suck up a lot of, well, not suck up, but, take up a lot of time.
Yeah.
Just being very, needing a lot of things. And so if we're not careful, we're not being proactive, then we become disconnected. And so I think talking, whether it's because of one of us has hurt another or offended someone, or we've just grown apart because we haven't been paying attention to each other, just coming back and sharing how we feel. And it's important too, when we feel upset by something someone did, that we share how we feel about it, rather than making negative statements about what the other person did or what they didn't do. Mm-hmm. If we do that, if we're making negative statements about, you said this and it hurt me, you caused me pain, that was selfish, whatever you were doing. We're making statements like that, the other person's just going to get defensive and they're going to attack us back, or they're just going to make excuses. And then when they make excuses, we don't feel like they were really listening and hearing where we're coming from. And then we want to attack even more. And then they, do the same thing, or they attack us back. And it just creates more mess and more disconnection when we do that. But if we just focus on, this is what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. I felt this way when you said this. I felt disappointed. I was hoping that you would remember our anniversary. I was, I felt disappointed because I was hoping you could help with dinner, and I felt like I had to do it by myself, and I didn't feel cared about, or something like that. You're focusing on how you feel, and then asking for what you need. Saying something like, I'd really appreciate it if in the future you didn't say that thing or do that thing, or I'd really appreciate it if you could help me with dinner in the future, or remember our anniversary, or think of me when blah blah blah, or text me more often during the day. So just sharing how we feel and sharing what you need, like that will resolve a conflict really quickly, because that's what a conflict is all about. You're needing something, and if you get to that issue real quickly, rather than focusing on the other person's behavior and how bad they are, and then creating a fight, an argument, really, it's just going to be a whole lot more effective at reconnecting too. And then the last thing that helps us reconnect is sex. So here's the thing about this. I guess I do, but I think it's really horrible when, that people might only do it for once a week. Like, it's really not, and it's not because I'm saying that because I'm a guy, and, we need it more often. Like, it's for the benefit of the marriage. It's just such a powerful connecting, relationship building, intimacy building tool. And if you're only doing it once a week, it's like, what a waste. Like, it's a big part of getting married, so you can have sex with someone as much as you want, in the safety and the purity of this covenant committed relationship. And it's just such I just don't, it's sad when people only do it once a week. And I understand if, the man is just using sex, or during sex, he's just using his wife's body to fulfill his own desires. When it's done that way, it's an unhealthy thing. It's not a good thing. But sex should be about both people trying to make each other feel good. And if both people are trying to make each other feel good, then it's a great thing. And it should be more than just once a week. I mean, maybe twice or three times, at least twice or three times a week, not once a week. And I know you get busy, but us, we not to get too personal, but we try and do it pretty often, because it's good for the marriage, it's good for the relationship. And we when we try and think of each other. It's not something that either of us just like we're trying to take from each other or use each other to fulfill a desire. It's a a loving thing where we're giving and receiving. And if you do it like that, it should be a lot more than once a week. And
yeah, it's more enjoyable that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing, that when we're feeling disconnected, if we're like more snippy with each other or just like aggravated and everything, like usually it's because it's been a while. And it's like having sex is one of those things that it instantly, like, you're thinking about the other. I mean, for us, it's you're thinking about the other person, you're showing that love and care towards your spouse, and it just changes things. Like it just instantly makes things better. And it just it just does.
Yeah. And hey guys, like, if you're not getting it as much as you want, like, it might be because I don't know your situation. I don't want to say this if this isn't I don't mean this towards you if this isn't the case, but make sure you're making it about, a giving thing as much as a receiving thing. And your wife might be a lot more eager and willing to have sex more often if it's not just about you feeling good and you getting your desires met. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good topic to end on, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That was a good topic. We went a little longer than we wanted to, but I just want to say thank you so much for everyone that listened, especially if you're still listening now. Thank you. We really appreciate it as our first one. We're going to get better at it as we go on. But if you could, I think we're going to have this on YouTube. I haven't figured out the whole podcast thing, but YouTube is just so accessible to everyone these days. So I think we're going to just have our podcast up there. So again, thank you so much for listening, everyone.
And be sure to listen next time. Bye for now.